Okay, I see that we're live streaming now.
All right.
Great. Well, welcome. Thank you everyone for being here to the February 14th, 2024 Public Safety Committee meeting. We have a couple people who aren't here just yet to give reports, so we're going to go to our second agenda item, which will be, actually, we're going to go to our first agenda item, Office of Emergency Management update with Committeeman Ms. DeLuca.
It's going to be Mr. Weary.
Oh, it's going to be Ms. Wary. Great. That's right.
Yes,
In the
thank
new
you.
lead. Welcome,
So
Chief.
we, hello, Chief. We had a training for OEM today where we logged into the county system and went through we have to do a quarterly where we go through their system and request assets and open up an emergency operations center. So I did that today with Detective Delias and it went without a hitch, which is good. Yeah, that's the only report for now, other than typical meetings. And I guess one other thing of note is that we did declare an emergency for the snowstorm. So the mayor and I declared an emergency officially yesterday morning, just after the county declared their emergency, and we rescinded it this morning. So that paperwork was all complete. And fortunately, we had no real need to use the emergency, which is always a good thing.
That's great. So no one needed the warming centers or any of that.
No.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for keeping up on top of that. And my apologies for trying to pass it off to Vic because he has done that. And it's now yours.
Yes, thank you.
All right. And now I don't actually have a report. I had not received one from Mr. Conklin in regards to the fire report. I don't know if you received one, Mr. DeLuca.
Well, we got that as part of code, but I have the report from the fire chief. And
Would you
so,
mind sharing that? Thank you.
yeah, I don't have it. I have it physical, but I'll give you some numbers. In 2023, the South Essex Fire Department responded to 4,800 incidents. And that includes everything from obviously fires to citizen complaints to smoke detector problems, false alarms, what have you. So clearly, by far, 34% of the calls, actually closer to 40% of the calls, are medical related. In Maplewood, the South Essex Fire Department provides emergency medical services in Maplewood, not in South Orange. But that by far is the most medical is the most responded to incident. If you take that out, I'll give you the top 5 things that we respond to. The top incident we respond to with 5% of calls is a lockout. Someone who gets locked out of their house or their car or what have you. So that's the top response. The second is smoke detector activation where there's no fire. And it's an unintentional. And third after that is a alarm activation. That's unintentional. So there's no fire there. Then the fourth highest incident that we respond to is a gas leak. And this occurs when people smell gas or lots of times at construction sites. Somebody will be using either manual labor or some kind of machinery that hits a gas pipe. So once that occurs, the fire department has to appear on the scene, and they cannot leave until PSE&G comes. And then the fifth highest incident is good intent calls. So those are things like going to block parties and schools and things like that. Luckily, what's low on the list is building fires. That's only 1%, 1.5% of our calls, which is very good. And most of those building fires are outside of Maplewood, and they're based on mutual aid. And the way this works, it's a sort of the old game of checkers where you move fire departments from one house to another house. They slide over. If our firefighters are out at a fire, for example, we had a big fire in South Orange. The Newark firefighters came and sat in our firehouses to cover the rest of the town. And we do that too. We go sit in Orange's firehouse. We go sit in Irvington's firehouse if we're not called to the scene. So that's, luckily, again, we don't have a lot of building fires. We do have cooking fires. That is something that does occur, but luckily it's contained and we're able to deal with that. So we are looking at these statistics, trying to drill down a little bit more so that we understand the operation. But overall, we're in great shape and we're continuing to move forward. And that's about it with the SCFD. As far as Conklin's report, he did inspections. His inspections were about where we thought they would be when we started the year. We're now getting I think a healthy dose of fees, both for life hazard inspections and non-life hazard inspections. And everything's pretty good on that side too. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Committeeman DeLuca? Ms. Adams?
Yes, just for the first one that you gave, the lockouts and stuff. So do all these calls require the fire truck to go and or do they always use the biggest equipment? I think that's kind of important for people to understand, and even I'm not quite sure I know. Or is it just like a vehicle, maybe like the SUV or the chief's SUV that goes to something like a lockout, as opposed to having to put the bigger vehicles which is more expensive, more wear and tear to run those every time. So I'm just curious.
So a lockout would be an engine with 3 firefighters.
I'm sorry, you kind of
And
broke
so
up.
the
engine?
deputy chief,
You broke
an
up.
engine with 3 firefighters.
Okay, yeah.
I broke up?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, engine with 3 firefighters. Okay.
But is that, I mean, I'm sure it's protocol for some reason, but it feels like, can they consider doing something a little more logical for a lockout?
You can't break up the team. You have to have those 3 people going at all times. So you can't take one off the engine and
Right.
put that person in an SUV, because then you're breaking up that team. That team has to stay wherever they are at all times. It's like when you see them in shopping, they're always together. They have to be together because they may be at a call, like for example, a lock-in, and they may get a secondary call and have to go right to that.
Understood. Yeah, that's what I was missing. Okay, thanks.
Any further questions? Welcome, Mr. Daffis. Glad you're able to make it. All right, so let's move on to your report, Chief Sally. I have the December metrics available. If I can share my screen, I can be your VA, your PA person.
Okay.
All right, and this is the December 2023 metrics.
Okay. Do you have the monthly report?
Did you want to start with that one?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. December metrics.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Ms. Craig, right now we're looking at your Outlook.
Ooh, that's weird. Hold on. Try that.
Okay.
Yep, that's it.
That's the monthly report, December. All right. So if you see on the left side column, 2022 and 2023, if we go down to robberies in December of last year, we had 1 in December. We had 1 aggravated assault. We had 2 burglaries, and we had 25 thefts in December. If you go to the right column, you will see the comparison year to date, 2022 to 2023. That's the full years. So robbery in 2022, we had 20. In 2023, we had 10. That was down 50%. Aggravated assaults in 2022 were 9 and 15 in 2023. And burglaries, 29 in 2022. And in 2023, we had 31. Thefts, 246 in 2022, 218 in 2023. That was a decrease. And we had auto thefts in 2022. We had 93. At 2022, we had 93. In 2023, we had 58, which was a decrease. So that was the comparison between 2022 and 2023. For the month of January, up to that's not on here, but I'll just give you a quick snapshot of what's going on this year. We had 4 assaults with 4 arrests. They were all domestics. Burglaries, we had 4 in January. The style of burglary is the ones that they break in and remove vehicles or attempt to steal vehicles, to get keys, to get the vehicle. And thefts, so far we have 15, and auto thefts we have 5. So that's this year, January, for the month of January. So that's where we are. Our auto thefts are still trending down. Last year in January we had 9. This year we have 5. So we're going down in that category. So those are the major incidents we have that we're looking at. The burglaries did increase last year, and we have a few this year. We are working with other agencies as far as intel and sending information. So we do have we send out what we call BOLO, be on the lookout to other agencies, and we do have pictures of possible suspects that we're investigating with those. So that's our main concern as far as crime is the burglaries.
There was a huge increase. It was like 60% or something like that with the domestics or with assaults. Is it predominantly domestics? And
yes, it is. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you look at our stats from last year, we're close to almost 100% clearance rate. Because it was domestic, because we know who they are. You know, so usually our partner. So that has been an increase, and most of them are domestics.
All right. And have we been? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just want to add, Chief, just if you could define domestic. So it's could be a spouse to spouse, partner to partner. It could be a child to an adult. Or a child to a child too, is that correct?
The child to an adult is not considered that's more so that would be if it's an adult to a child, that's DIFUS related. A child to an adult could fall under domestic, but it's still juvenile. So that's not, it's treated.
Well, I guess I was thinking like an 18-year-old gets in a beef with their parent.
Yeah.
An 18-year-old.
That's a domestic.
That would be a domestic, right? Yeah. Okay.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
And have we been enlisted the help of the social workers or services to address some of these?
Definitely. And also we are sending some volunteers for training for the so when we do have a domestic for victims to speak to, so we do have volunteers that are going for training for that to help us out with that as far as domestic counsel.
I remember that was on the I want to say it was on December's weekly updates. Are they still going out on the weekly updates, Mr. Weary? Or is it because the training has already begun that's been taken down?
We do have a group of volunteers. I don't have the information in front of me, but they are working with Sergeant Fields. She's coordinating that, and she is sending volunteers to training.
We had put out a couple targeted solicitations for volunteers. I don't believe we have in maybe the last few of them, and I can see where we are and how many more volunteers we're looking for. And if we need more, we can put out more targeted notices.
Great. If if Detective Fields feels that she needs more people, please communicate that. Because I'm pretty sure there's some folks that maybe in the mix missed it, and this could be the time for them to step up. All right, great. Thank you so much. Did you want to go over, did we finish the UCR? Or we did not?
Overtime?
Overtime, yeah.
Okay, so. Want me to read it off? Oh, you got it. Okay, so there's the overtime. This is January comparison from this is January. So comparison for 2023 to 2024. You see a small decrease in there for 911 dispatchers, and you see a nice decrease there for police overtime. And so there's a small decrease there for overtime. So we're working on that. And that's, our overtime usually is replacing sick officers that are out sick, and also for vacations. And, sick could be, family leave or Murphy, or just regular sick days and vacation, or extended injuries to that effect. Also, we might get an investigation that might lead us to, give overtime for that.
Well, it does look like with full staffing that the numbers dropped drastically. So that's a great thing. And also from the approved leave at the bottom, the number is showing only a few folks. So they're starting to plan out and not feel so, I don't want to say desperate to get out of the PD, but it does seem like there's a balance happening. So yay for that, Chief. Appreciate that.
And we have 3 officers in the police academies now. So once they graduate, we'll have more spots filled.
Great.
Chief, could I ask, are we fully staffed with the dispatchers?
We are. We just have to get. I think the issue is the part timers. So we probably need some more part timers that are consistent. That that we can get to come in. So I think that's it. But we are full with full timers.
I know we advertise in the township e-blast, Patrick, that we're looking for crossing guards. We should probably say we're looking for part-time dispatchers too.
We can do that. It's not listed right now, but we can certainly do that.
Great. Thank you very much, Chief. Does anyone have any other questions for Chief Sally? That have to do with the UCR report and the metrics for this month.
Yes. So that was it. I mean, that's all I have.
All right, great. So let's keep it moving. Going on to our discussion items. Mr. DeLuca, you had asked for us to put these 3 first items on the agenda, and I want to apologize to Mr. Daffis. There was a 4th one, and I don't think I found it. I dug through my emails and I just could not find it, but I do remember you mentioning something. So if you notice it is not here, please bring it up so we can discuss it. The first item is Parker Avenue traffic enforcement update in regards to the intersection of Suffolk and Parker. A few concerned citizens not only sent us videos, but like images of the accidents that have been occurring there, particularly people in Parker Avenue fashion, driving really, really fast and letting gravity do the work as they come to the intersection, in particular at Suffolk. it was brought up a couple of times in previous meetings, as well as by those residents in those areas. And what have we started to put in, what have we put in place in this one particular area to try to help slow people down and kind of calm the traffic in this area?
Yeah, so we've been doing traffic details there for a few months now. But I do have a snapshot of from this year, January to today. So we're on that street a lot on Parker. So for example, there is a synagogue on Parker, so we do multiple inspections there. So for that time period, we did over 100 inspections of that area. And then you move to traffic details. We have done 26 traffic details in a month. We have done 92 crime details there in a month. We have done different kinds of probably over 10, 15 other types of details over there. We did have 8 traffic stops and I believe three tickets were issued on Parker specifically. However, we got to do a bigger check of the side streets because the check on just Parker only highlights Parker. So it could be somebody speeding on Parker and then we pull somebody over on Summit and that stop will be recorded on Summit, or it might be recorded on Suffolk, or it might be recorded on Union, or it might be recorded on, we saw it on Parker and it ended up on Irvington Avenue. So I do have, I just need a little bit more time to check those surrounding areas of where these stops might be taking place. Again, we might observe it on Parker, but it might be stopped somewhere else. So the way our data works, it might show up somewhere else as far as the stops. But our actual details that traffic specific that we do a detail is 26. So on Parker for the month.
All right. And how many tickets has this resulted in? Because it does seem like it's rampant. It's not just once in a while.
Yeah. So again, 3 actual tickets on Parker for the month on Parker and 1 warning on Parker. Again, it could be a ticket on Summit, or so I gotta dig deeper into see if these stops are happening on side streets.
Okay, yeah, if you could bring that back for next month, that would be great, because we'd like
Right.
to be able to report to the citizens who've asked, are people even bothering being ticketed? It's something that we've wanted, and it's something that we'd love to see your people do. Until we actually have full-on permanent traffic calming stop signs and striping and cones and everything else, we've got to do everything we can to calm the traffic and help our citizens feel safe
Yep.
as they're walking their children to and from school. Or
Yeah.
just
So I can give an update on the engineering side of it.
please.
In all this, we talk about the 3 E's, the enforcement, education, and engineering. So Chief just mentioned the enforcement. On the engineering side, we have engaged Dynamic Traffic, which is our traffic consultant. They provided us with a plan. They're going to do a complete analysis of the road, including crash data, studies. They're going to take each section, look at each section to see if there's any uniqueness to that section. It'll be a striping plan. It'll be a long and short. It'll be a short-term response and a longer-term response. It might include Mayor Adams brought up a high friction surface treatment, other types of treatments in the road. So that is all going to happen. We're going to get a plan done by Dynamic Traffic. The one wrinkle is because it is the beginning of the year and engineering has spent all its money last year, that we have to wait to get the budget passed. And that's in the capital budget. So we've asked Patrick and Paul to speak with the CFO to see if there's a way that we could expedite the process by using other funds and paying it back or whatever it has to be done. So that's going to be talked about. If not, we're probably talking about a May or June time for the study. In the meantime, we're looking to put up in-street crossing signs, those signs that go in the street. And I think we have 3 or 4 that we're going to be putting up along Parker.
All right. I hope they
That's where we are.
survive longer than the ones that have been on Prospect.
Yeah,
those-
well, they do get whacked,
Yeah.
and they're not cheap. But, some of them have lasted. So, they'll be put at, we know of a couple of the different intersections, and we can move them around. So if we see that they're should be more effective one way or the other, we'll do that. So I think as long as the chief keeps doing the enforcement and we put some of these out there, people will get a sense that we're moving. And certainly when we have the dynamic traffic study, it'll give us a roadmap of how we can move forward.
Could we use digital signboard in that area as well? This is another slowdown. It's 25. as
Or
everyone
just saying that it's enforcement in progress or something like that you see like on 78.
Yeah, so our MPH signs, we took them off because of the weather. Because of the, we had snow and everything else going on. So once we get it cleared, we can, we'll put them back out in different locations and stuff.
And Chief, do you have anybody visibly stationed along Parker at all? Like, just sitting by the corner on a regular basis at Suffolk, other than, because, seeing a cop, or even a dummy cop car, I'm just like thinking that presence sometimes helps as well.
Yeah, I mean the times the officers are out there is when they're doing a detail, and we've done a lot of details there, or inspections of the synagogue. They will sit out there, but it's usually during a detail. But we did 26 traffic details, and we have done special crime details. We did about 90 of those, so that's time that they spend there in the area.
Visible, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then, but if they get called off on a call, then they
have to go.
they gotta go. But
All right. Well, thank you, Chief. Are there any other questions in regards to Parker traffic calming? All right, discussion item number 2, public gatherings. Mr. Luca was so kind to pull out and send us in a separate email the code, or at least a blurb of the code. And I dropped it in the notes that everyone should have gotten. Let me see if I can open it up so we can see the screen for people who
So
don't
this
have
item
it.
and D are, sort of the same item on the agenda.
Okay.
Rickleton in this item. So let me just put up what I shared.
I got it.
Okay. All right. So you're sharing it or am I sharing it?
No, you share it. Yours
Okay.
is better.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. So the 2 things that I pulled out, one is disorderly conduct, and the second is public property use of public property. So just so everyone's clear, and anyone who's on this as an attendee, we do have permits for events. You need to get an event permit to use public property.
I don't want to interrupt you, but can you zoom in a little?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Here we go. Is that okay? Better?
That's great.
Definitely.
Okay. So we have some exceptions. So if you look here, all public gatherings are events except these 5 things. So one of them is a neighborhood block party because it's covered by another ordinance. Same with filming, outdoor displays, they're all covered by another ordinance. Funeral procession, you don't need an event application for that. So here's the big thing: demonstrations, picketing, rallies, free speech activity, and that don't involve vehicles, animals, fireworks, blah, blah, blah. It does allow for sound equipment. And here are the 2 kickers. 1, you can't charge a fee or donation charged as required to participate in the demonstration, protest, picketing, or rally. And 2, you have to notify the police at least 2 hours in advance of the commencement of the free speech activity. So the way this works is if you have a demonstration, as long as you give at least 2 hours notice to the police, then you do not need a permit. But in that notice, and Chief, you can talk about this, you have to describe what you're going to do. So if you're going to rally, where it's going to be, you're told that you can't be on the sidewalk, you can't be in the street. If there's a march involved, that has to be told. We can control the activity. We cannot prohibit the activity, but we can regulate the activity. And one of them is at least 2 hours notice. So that's what we have in our current ordinance. So if you want to use a public park like Rickleton, then you have to notify the police 2 hours before. If you want to have a protest on the street, on the sidewalk rather, for example, across the street in front of the movie theater, you would also have to give 2 hours notice because you're setting up a table. You may be impeding pedestrian flow or what have you. And then there's the disorderly conduct things. So, this is loud, offensive, indecent language, obstruct people, fight, brawl, misbehave. I mean, some of this might be a little subjective, but I think, and the Chief, you can speak to this, I think these are opportunities for our police officers to, if they see that people are acting outside of the normal conduct of a protest or counter protest, then they could get a ticket for disorderly conduct. And, you get a ticket and, the fine is up to $1,000 or 6 months in jail. So I'm going to stop sharing so we can see each other. So again, I know this past Sunday, Chief, we did not have knowledge of either of the rallies. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so there was a violation there of both rallies because they have to give us notice. And so I guess we were within our rights to go there and say you have to disperse. But I think what we want instead is to make sure that they give us notice, describe what they're going to do, and then we give them a code of how they have to behave. And that means you can't be up in front of each other's face in the street. You can't be on the sidewalk, or you can't impede people walking on the sidewalk. So I'm losing my voice, so I'm going to stop talking.
Right. So,
Well,
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to add to Mr. DeLuca's comments that, there's requirements and what I think he left out was that if, there's, say in a narrow area, like across the street from Rickleton, where the sidewalk is, pretty narrow, there's privately owned front yard at the, old Bergdorf Realty building. And then, people can't get by or they feel uncomfortable walking by there. So the police also, correct me if I'm wrong, have the right to move people to somewhere else. Like they could move them to across the street to like the southern end of Rickleton, for example, away from the other protesters, but to be able to, the police have the right to move people in this situation if they're impeding. There's, ADA compliance, 4 feet of clearance. There needs to be public space for people who are just trying to go downtown to be able to go to any businesses they want to go to and so forth. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Right. So the police definitely need the 2 hour notice. If there's any protest or First Amendment situation going on, because we need to know what is going on and how we're going to protect the public, everybody, the protesters and the people that are there. So we have so when we speak to the organizer, we don't want to over police it, but we don't want to under police it. So we need to know or get a idea of how many people are going to be at the protest. I know you can't judge it 100%, but we like to get a certain number so we'll be able to make sure everybody's safe. Also, again, as everybody stated, we cannot block the sidewalk. We need people to have passes to the sidewalk. We can't block the streets. Traffic needs to flow. And if we need you to move to a certain location, it's just pretty much us directing you to where to go for the safest place to be. We want everybody to participate. We don't want to stop anybody from participating, and we just want to make sure everybody's safe and that people who are not participating are able to go where they need to go to, and they're safe. So that's just the major goal of the police department. We're not, we don't judge who's protesting or what side or anything. We're just making sure everybody's safe, and that's the purpose of the police department.
And Chief, could you speak a little bit to some of the emails and comments we've received of people feeling threatened or unsafe just by walking through the village, even if they didn't know this was going on, and because someone is a certain religious persuasion or something and they're walking by and they feel unsafe? Can you speak to what they have the ability to do and something
Right.
on that?
So you could always call us or notify us, but I want everybody to know, moving forward, we will have officers in that location. So you will always see a officer there that you can come up to, ask them or speak to them, or just call us. And if we're not in that specific area, we'll get there pretty fast. If you call us there, and if you feel threatened or anything, we will investigate it individually. Everything, there's different scenarios for different things. We'll investigate anything that if you're feeling harassed or if there's any, you feel some kind of way about something.
So, Chief, I have a couple questions. So let's say that this group wants to, or any group wants to have a protest in Rickleton Square this upcoming Sunday. And they call the police department, the 2 hours that we're talking about.
Right.
How is that handled? First of all, who do they call?
Okay, so hopefully they will call us during the weekday. That's when the administration is working. I'm not particularly working on a Sunday, but if I'm there, they can speak to me directly, or they can speak to our administration directly. Usually on a Sunday, it'll be a lieutenant or a sergeant on the desk. So they will need to speak to the watch commander. The watch commander will get the information. The watch commander will notify the administration that there is a protest or a protest happening, with the location, time, approximately how many people. So we will have that information so we can deploy officers to that location to make sure everybody's safe.
And does the watch commander log this somewhere? Is there sort of a digital trail or paper trail of said notice?
Yeah, everything that comes into the police department is documented. Every
Where
report
is
is
it
documented.
documented?
It's documented in our CAD system. We have a system where it documents everything from disorderly conduct to a protest that's taking place. It's every citizens reports, everything's documented in our computer system.
So let's
Okay.
say, for instance, that we've established that Mary is the contact person for
Right.
Soma such and such group, right? And Mary has contacted us before a couple of hours, followed our process, and we kind of have an idea of Mary's group and their activity. They've established a regular pattern. We kind of have an idea of where they congregate, and we certainly have an idea of audience size and behavior, right?
Right.
Let's say that Mary's no longer with that group, and now it's John who is the
Okay.
contact. You see
Okay.
where I'm going here? Where I'm going with this is that, I like what we have. It's open. There still is a process, but I think that it may not be a bad idea to also have a more formal process with the same elements, right? The element would still be the same, that it's 2 hours notice, no permit fee, so on and so forth. And all the rules apply that our existing code spells out. But when that person makes a call, it is the issuance of a permit that is happening during that conversation, which with the watch commander. So there's more of an official record of the activity. So it doesn't stop people from being able to do something last minute, right? Because a lot of times, we have God forbid, a shooting somewhere, and we want to go out and do a vigil right away, right? So you don't have to fill out an administrative permit like for events during the week with the clerk's office and all that jazz. You can do it within 2 hours of your event. So we're not restricting free speech, but it allows us to have an official permit in place, which we then have documented so that we can go back and use our discretion as we need to use it. For instance, we can say, well, based on previous behavior, you get a lot of participants, and Rickleton Square is really, you've outgrown that space. So you should go, we're going to allow you to do this, but you're going to go down to Baker Street, by the benches, which ironically is even more visible for the Maplewood Village, and not going to impede traffic or pedestrian flow as much as Rickleton Square might do. So it establishes something official, and it doesn't in any way burden the organizer. It allows for last minute flexibility. And the courts, including the Supremes, have said time and time again that permits for protests and rallies are not unreasonable restrictions on free speech rather, because they do allow for the people to still do their activity while allowing the municipality some discretion and authority and oversight over the activity.
So,
And the thing, I'm sorry.
I
Go
was
ahead,
just
Mayor.
ask Mr. Daffis, so you're talking about actual paperwork, maybe? Yeah. Yeah, or at the very least, in the meantime, verbal paperwork as to making sure there's a contact person that the police have when they call in and say, in 2 hours, we're going to hang out and do a rally.
But
What-
I think I didn't catch what you mean, because everything is documented with us.
Right. The chief said
Okay.
all that is captured in the CAD system.
Yeah, we have it all.
Yeah, it's in the CAT system. Okay, because I guess what some of the questions were that we had received from emails and stuff were folks that had contacted the police department and was like, "Did you know this? That was happening?" And at the time, the watch person, commander, whoever, was like, "No, we were unaware." And this is just what we heard from the emails. Folks feeling
Okay.
like when they called and asked, "Is this going on? Did you know about this?" The answer was no.
Okay.
Right,
That
because
could be.
the group failed to follow the procedure, and that's to notify the police within 2 hours. But once Chief, you described it. Once you notify the police, you take names and contacts, how many people and all
Correct.
that. And I
Correct.
would assume that it's in your discretion. If they say, we expect 500 people, you can say, well, you can't have it there because we don't have the space.
That's correct. So it could be one or two things. One, they haven't contacted us, but also this is kind of new how this is popping up now. So we are retraining our lieutenants and sergeants of once they get this call, what to do.
Okay, so is the follow-up, for example, if the case was this past week that did not fulfill the 2-hour requirement and let folks know and everything, is there going to be a summons issued?
I think they can just tell them to disperse, right?
Or
We
will they be
could.
told to disperse? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if if
but
it happened last week and they didn't have a permit, is a summons being issued? And if they do it this week without a permit or without the phone call, will they be asked to disperse? So I guess there's two parts.
Yeah, we could, but we're trying to be proactive with it. So we're trying to notify the organizers and inform them of what the ordinance is. You know, that the ordinance is that you must notify us in 2 hours. And if we can get in contact with a organizer, we'll let them know. And then
And
if we do, we'll say,
Go ahead.
and then if we do, we'll say, okay, are you planning on doing something Saturday or Sunday or what a day it is? And then we'll get the information there.
And that, because I feel like the counter protest seems to be more, reactive to that. So if the people who are rallying or protesting are, say, in Rickleton, and then because they're there, others come to sort of counter protest across the street, presumably they are required to also notify the police department 2 hours ahead of time. I think that's the message we need to get out. And Mr. Wary, maybe this is information we should get out through the public, through SMS and email, to say, hey, here's our process, and make it known broader and wider than this call, and response to the emails that we've been getting. So
We
I
can
think-
make it public. I know in this instance, there are two groups protesting, and we're in the process of connecting with both of those groups. If you'd like us to make a broader appeal to the general public as well, to make them aware, we can certainly do that.
I think
that's
it's
simple
important.
enough.
I think it's important to do, because we can't just presume that, these are the only people who might feel
Sure.
compelled to come out. So, to Mr. Daff's point, I think it's not necessarily a bad idea. And maybe as we kind of go through this and we see what we need and what we're doing now, and if it's sufficient, that's fine. But, there is a little bit of like, formality that is projected when you require someone to fill out a piece of paper, perhaps, so that they're like, yes, even though you're capturing the information and stuff, it just kind of gives that extra level. So it's just something to think about. And we, as we're rolling with this and trying to, figure out what we want to do without impeding free speech, because we don't want to do that, but we also don't want to be unprepared.
Right. And in the case of those folks, I'm just asking for clarification. Every single time they meet or they plan a protest, they're supposed to call you. So it's not one, I'm going to do this every Sunday, and then they're expected you to track every Sunday.
Correct.
Every time they're supposed to call. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, they can't pull out a permit for like the month. for example.
Right. Because that's kind of the messaging it seemed to have gotten out, is that we'll be here every Sunday from now until perpetuity. But if they have to call, then yes, then that's the process. And then we'll have that point person and that point name, whatever.
And I think that's good, Ms. Kirk, because there's there's sort of like, you can't just reserve this spot for you. There are other groups or other people, or maybe a tree lighting or whatever, or, like, you can't just, so I think the requirement on a week, every time you're going to do it is.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification, because the vibe
Yeah.
seemed like it was coming out as like, we did it and we're doing this until whenever, and one phone call. So I just want to
totally
make sure.
agree with you. Yep.
So my final comments are these. I think we're not paying attention to what our residents are saying right now. I think we're being flat-footed. People are saying that they don't feel safe, whatever side they're on, and people who are not even engaged in the protests. They're saying they're feeling safe. And when you dig into that a little bit more, you find out that what they'd like to see is something a little bit more of a formal process. Again, with the same elements. So we're not restricting speech beyond what's currently allowed right now. To the mayor's points, I'm not in favor of our waiting to see. if we need more. I think we should just make it official and figure that out now, because people are getting aggressive out there.
Yeah, that
This
was
is-
my concern.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone beyond the slogans and, you know, the different name calling and all this and all that. And now people are getting in each other's faces.
Faces. Hmm.
And there's even scarier things in some social media threads where people are, you know, saying other things that are very dangerous. And we can, you know, sit here and say what we have is fine. And we can discount some of that as extreme, or this person was kidding, or they didn't mean it. But again, we're not paying attention to what's happening right now. We have to meet what's happening right now.
I think,
Yeah, and
however, we are.
I don't think we're not paying attention. I think we are.
Yeah,
paying-
I think we are.
We're gonna have
I
the
think-
police there. Last week, the police didn't know about it and they weren't there. The police are gonna be there in the future. And, you know, they have to tell the police what they're gonna do. If they don't do that, the police are fully within their rights to disband the event. So that's what they should do. So if to me, there's no difference if I sit there and fill out a form, or you call me up as the lieutenant, and I say, okay, what's the name of the group? Who's in charge? What's the cell phone number? How many people? Blah, blah, blah. You get all that information that gets logged in at the police station. Every officer is aware of what's going on. So when they get to that scene, they're prepared to deal with potentially 2 groups or more. And so I don't think there should be anything that's going on. The police have full powers to deal with it, both from an event side and the disorderly. If people get disorderly, they write them tickets, or they give them cool downs, they give them warnings. And that's what they need to be. They need to be proactive out there, making sure that each side has the opportunity to say what they want, but not in each other's face. And they can't raise this to the level where it becomes disorderly.
Right. I think some of the problem, however, and to your point, Mr. DeLuca, is that there are some phrases and things that are being utilized by people who are here at these protests that are extremely discomforting for folks. It's frightening. Some of the things that are being said, some of the intention, even though it may not be what the original yeller might have been, how it is used in the greater world is a negative thing. And that's when we start to fall into that slippery slope of First Amendment. Like, who do we get to police? Who gets to say what? I don't know if we're at that stage, if we'll ever be at that stage. I don't believe that that's where we have to be. But the accountability is something that's got to have to be figured out by the officer on hand. And I don't know if that is the right thing to do, or I'm weirded out in this one spot just because of the First Amendment.
Yeah, well, and the First Amendment is strong and important, and it does unfortunately enable people to say really vile, awful things that upset other people. Chief, can you speak to what you and I spoke about with regard to when it becomes when someone feels unsafe or threatened personally, or when it becomes criminal activity and takes that step past First Amendment right?
Yeah, just pulled out Title II-C for disorderly persons. And it says, since the statute's enactment, the United States Supreme Court and the New Jersey Supreme Court have held that a person may not be punished for speech which solely is offensive to the sensibilities of the hearer. Such speech comes within the protection of the First Amendment of the federal Constitution. As a result, there is no valid statutory authority for prosecutors based upon the public use of coarse or abusive language, which does not go beyond offending the sensibilities of a listener. So, you know, a lot of speech might be, you know, hurtful to somebody, but, you know, the police are there just to make sure it doesn't go any further than that. Acts of civil disobedience or violence to that effect. So the actual language that's yelled out to a group, we are there just to make sure it doesn't escalate. and if it does to something criminal, then we take action.
And you mentioned something about an individual threat, like a,
Yeah, so if I walk up to somebody and say, I'm gonna kill you or something to that effect, that's a direct terroristic threat to somebody. So the thing is, going forward, we do have officers there. They are trained on, and again, each situation is a nuance or a different scenario. So, again, we don't want to violate anybody's First Amendment, but we are there if for the protection of everybody. So if somebody is, if it comes to something criminal, then we will take care of it as we observe it.
And Chief, you're
All right.
reaching out to these groups beforehand, correct?
Yes, yes, and we have what we call operation plan. So we have an operation plan for events going forward. Our officers are aware. Our supervisors are aware, and hopefully we'll have supervisors out there during the time. We'll go from there.
All right, being that was pretty much tied into item D in our list, I'd like to move, since we're kind of already in this wheelhouse, to item E, which is concerns from our Jewish community in regards to some of the social media stuff that Mr. Jaffet's referred to in his statement. What reports have been made and what can people do if they feel threatened on social media?
So I do believe we have received some reports. I haven't reviewed everything, but yeah, definitely come to the police department, report anything that you feel threatened for, and we will investigate it. Social media is kind of tough to ID a person. They can use different information, but we investigate everything that comes in that somebody feels threatened or so yeah, call the police department, come down to the police department. We'll take all the reports. I have received emails from people. I spoke to a couple people, and we will investigate it.
Okay, because I know some cases it was email lists of people who identify as Jewish being published on sites so that people know where these folks live, and that's private personal
Okay.
information that shouldn't be getting out.
Yeah, I don't think I saw that. Not that it hasn't come in, but I haven't seen that particular one. But again, yeah, give it to us. We'll investigate it. Again, we law enforcement is bigger than just our agency. So when we have protests, we notify the sheriff's department. We have the prosecutor's office. So we have other agencies that can assist us with any type of threat or any type of concerns or demonstrations.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions further for Chief Sally in regards to this before we move on to the employment rates? Item C. No? Okay, Chief. I believe, again, this is Mr. DeLuca. This is one of your items.
So this could be quick. Each year we're supposed to establish by resolution the rates. So we haven't done that, and we ought to update. And it's based on rates of the highest paid police officers. So we ought to just make sure that we update those rates, and then we just need to, for purposes of dotting all our I's and T's, just have it put into a resolution passed by the township committee.
Will do.
All right, thank you. Any further questions or any discussion on this item? All right, we've now moved into our public comment portion of the meeting. Mr. Waring.
If any members of the public would like to speak in public portion, please raise your hand now and I will promote you to panelist. I am promoting Henry Satone. Mr. Satone, welcome to public portion. You can unmute yourself and speak.
Unmute. All right, cool. Hey, thanks, Patrick. I appreciate it. So I live in South Orange. Normally, I don't come to your meetings because it's another town. One of your residents, and this is to Chief Sally, one of your residents who's a realtor took down a list of 1,200 Soma Jews and put us all on a list because she allegedly feels threatened by somebody. Now that's bullshit, okay? She's not threatened by anybody. Those lists are valuable to terrorist organizations, okay? They're extremely valuable because they're currency. You can sell them, you can trade them, you can give them to other people. A lot of the people that are coming to your protests over in Maplewood are coming from outside of Maplewood. This protest was advertised internationally by Samadoun, which is a PFLP affiliate that is banned in numerous countries. And they put Maplewood down on there. And now we got a list with my family on it and my address on it by a resident of your town. You got to go down to her house and give her a talking to. I don't care if what she did is First Amendment or not. What she's doing is dangerous. Okay, so you got to deal with this the same way we dealt with the Klan down in the South. I lived in the South, and the sheriff would go down there and tell those good old boys, hey, I know what you're doing is First Amendment, but you step over the line. I am watching you. That's what needs to happen with this lady. Thank you.
I am promoting Yuval Brockman. Hi, Yuval Brockman. Welcome to public portion. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. My name's Yuval. I'm a resident of South Orange, and I just want to make sure that everyone here understands the gravity of the situation and the threats that are being made against the Jewish community. I want to be very clear. I'm not asking to stop any of these pro-terrorist rallies that are taking place in our town. That's the right that protects me from rallying for peace, protects them for shouting pro-terrorist slogans. And I don't think it's the job of this group to solve the peace in the Middle East. That's someone else's job. But I think you should really, truly understand the threat that the Jewish community is feeling. These individuals are holding signs that say "Kiss Hamas" and "Resistance is cute." They're yelling that Jews should go back to the gas chambers. As Henry shared, there's a person who's written down all of our names and our addresses, and we have swastikas in our schools. But the worst part is the things that they're shouting, particularly about the death of Jews that they're hoping for in our town. They're yelling there's only one solution, intifada revolution. And what that means is the Arabic word intifada is used to describe two periods of violence in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, where Palestinian terrorists would strap bombs to themselves, walk into cafes and schools and buses and blow themselves up, killing people. That's what they're calling for in our town, a globalized intifada. They literally want people to strap bombs to themselves and walk into the businesses in our local community. And I don't understand how we can allow this in our town. I don't think we would be using this kind of language or saying or not restricting what they were doing if they were talking about bringing back the lynchings or stoning homosexuals. We wouldn't stand for it, and we would, as a community, denounce it publicly and then do everything in our power to encourage them to go elsewhere. My synagogue alone, and there are other members from my synagogue, have spent $300,000 on additional security in the last 6 months because of these threats. And I don't want to wait to take this seriously when something more than just these words happen. Thank you.
Now promoting Andrea Bromfeld to panelist. Hi, Andrea. Welcome to public comment. You may unmute yourself and speak.
Hi, I just wanted to reiterate what you've all said. I'm really scared. What's been happening is just getting worse and worse. And I don't know if you saw what happened in West Orange last night. It's really scary. And I know I'm a lawyer. I understand your hands are tied. And again, like you've all said, I'm not asking you to do things you can't do. But like I just want to know that people care and have our back because it is frightening what is happening out there. And it's important that we do stand together and we speak out against bad behavior. And the things I heard tonight sound good. They do sound promising in what the town is going to do. So I'm hopeful for that. But again, just want to make it clear, like we really need you. We do. Thank you.
If any other participants would like to speak in public comment, please raise your hand now.
Miss Single, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Well, I was raising my hand for public comment because I am one, on township committee, but I'm also a Jewish resident and also very scared. I mentioned to some of my colleagues that I no longer feel safe coming to the village on Sunday afternoons with my children because of some of the words that are being spoken and the tensions that are arising. I also got very nervous when I saw that someone said that they have a list of everybody in a Jewish group and that they're holding them responsible for some people's words. And then when I did speak to that person because I have a relationship, and I was surprised to hear that there's death threats against her as well. And so I'm just wondering, I was surprised, Chief Sally, that you didn't know about some of this stuff. So I guess I have a few questions. One is, are RPD monitoring Facebook and seeing some of the stuff that's going on? Because that's where it's all happening. A lot of this stuff is happening on Facebook. So I'm not sure what we're doing there. My second question is, have our police officers received training on anti-Semitism and Islamophobia? Because it's different than anti-bias training. And I'm not sure where the line is for hate speech and for direct threat. Because when I hear someone say, go back to the gas chamber, to me, that's a direct threat. And so I don't know if it's just the law, it just has to be just physical or in your face. And is there something that we as elected officials need to start advocating for, that verbal abuse is just as damaging as physical abuse? So I'm just not sure. So those are kind of like my three thoughts listening to that. And I came late, but that's my three thoughts listening to this. Thank you.
So as far as social media, we don't monitor it. We monitor it, but a lot of stuff, we need to get direct information from people. Social media sometimes, we may not know what's going on. People are talking back and forth on social media about threats they might have, but I would encourage people to contact us directly so we have the information so we can do the investigation. As far as anti-Semitism, we need to, I need to check to see if we do. I think we might need to do more training on that. I'm not sure if we have enough training in that. But as far as the,
I was just going to let you speak, Mr. DeLuca. I think we unmuted at the same time. Go ahead.
I think the chief was going to say something. I didn't want to interrupt you, Chief.
yeah, I just want to repeat about the threats though, because again, like a lot of information on social media we might not see and we might not have. So I just want to hammer the point in that we do need residents, if they do get a threat or anything, you gotta call us so we make sure we have that information so we can investigate.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Like people should, and then the police can, at least have record of it and start realizing that it's there. But I mean, I don't know that it's hard enough for anyone to follow social media, and some of those groups are closed groups. So it would be helpful for the public to notify the police department and file a report that this is what's being said. And
with screenshots.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of everything that a threat like this, we notify the prosecutor's office. So we get guidance through our the prosecutor's office. They have a bias unit and different units that can help us out with that. But if we don't know, you know, or you know, we need to know directly.
Yeah, and Chief, could you actually prioritize that search for training for Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, because it is not going to get any easier. So the sooner that can happen, the better.
I want to echo that, please. And this goes to administration as the appropriate authority. We've talked a lot about this kind of updated training that needs to happen in the police department. It's explicitly referenced in our adopted sanctuary resolution of a few months back. And, you know, and then the people who are here tonight have emailed us. They've sent us screenshots. They've told us what's going on.
Chief, I know in the past the state police has been monitoring Facebook and social media. Are they still doing that? And are you in Homeland Security, state Homeland Security? Are you in touch with them on this type of information?
Yeah, so we have monthly meetings, and they do share any intelligence they might have of any threats that might be possible. So they do notify us of any possible threats as far as you know, anything that might be going on.
Okay, Mr. Wary. Who else? There's a few others.
Yes, we have other raised hands. I'm moving over TH to panelist. Welcome, TH. You can unmute yourself. You're now in public comment. TH, you are still muted. If you'd like to unmute yourself, you are in public comment.
Sorry.
No trouble.
This was just a comment for Chief Sally. It was my understanding that a call for violence is not protected by free speech. And at the last rally, there was chants, as mentioned previously, for Antifada Global Revolution. That is a kind of global call for violence. It's just something that I wanted to clarify. I think that's going beyond name calling or free speech, and it actually is calling for violence. Thank you.
See, for those like specific phrases and chants, can you speak to the prosecutor's office specifically about that type of language, specifically the type of language they're using, and get some feedback from them on, you know, what they constitute as free speech and what constitutes calls for violence? Like what's actionable? Because am I right that they'd be the one that you turn to for that type of clarification? All right. I think we had talked about this before as well, and I know you've been in contact with them, so this isn't just coming up now, but I think it will be a good idea to get more clarification from them before this coming Sunday. And moving over Seizure to panelist. Seizure, you are now a panelist. You may speak.
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to thank you all very sincerely for taking this extremely seriously. It's been working its way up, as you know, for quite a while. And we have sent information. In fact, just a few minutes ago, Chief Sally, I sent you that excerpt from Facebook with the message about the list. So you should receive that. And I have something else I'll send you. It's a whole write-up that I did. I was going to submit it to the police department, but I think I will just send it to you directly. I really have to say, I have lived in Maplewood for 40 years, almost 41 years. I have never felt in danger or threatened in the town I live in. This has escalated to a point where we feel frightened, intimidated, and threatened as Jews in the community. It is very difficult, as some have said, and upsetting to be in Maplewood Village on Sunday afternoon. And I appreciate your investigation of the language used. And it's very complicated because it's not your typical, like Chief Sally, you said, if somebody says, I'm going to kill you. This has more, I don't want to use the word nuance, but when you use a word like intifada, a lot of people don't know what that means. When people say from the river to the sea, a lot of people don't know that that is code language for basically killing all the Jews in Israel. Not necessarily threatening those of us on Maplewood Avenue, but for dismantling the state of Israel. When someone shouts, go back to the gas chambers, that is very threatening and very upsetting, especially for those of us who are descendants of those who suffered from exactly that. In sum, I just want to say thank you for taking it very seriously. And one other thing, when you talk about this 2-hour notification, and we've been focusing on, there's the group that's been protesting in Rickleton Park, and there are the few, maybe 5 of them, counter protesters on the other side near the theater. Is it going to be just whoever calls first 2 hours before or 4 hours before? What if the group of 5 protesters on this sort of pro-Israel side call up and say, well, we're going to be in Rickleton Park on Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. Do the other protesters then end up on the other side of the street? It seems like this is going forward with 2 groups of people, and there's one Rickleton Park. So if we don't want them on the sidewalks and one calls before the other, how are you all going to deal with that? I don't know that you have the answer now, but it's complicated like that, and I'd like you to think about that. Anyhow, thank you all very much for taking this very seriously.
I did receive your email. I was coming on to this call when I received it, so I didn't get a chance to read it, but I'll read it as soon as this is over.
Now promoting Foos Pains to public portion.
What is that?
Bruce Pains, you're now in public portion. You may unmute yourself and speak. Welcome.
Hi, actually, my name is Joanna Rothenberg. It just shows up as different.
Very
Sorry
nice.
about that.
You're still welcome, no trouble.
So I'm actually going to share something that happened to me on February 4th. And I've made a police report already in Maplewood. There has been a detective assigned to my report and someone else who also made a report. But I just want to share this because it is really serious, and it just keeps getting more and more serious, and it's scary for us. So on Sunday, February 4th, on Maplewood Avenue, I was standing in front of the Maplewood Cinema observing the pro-Palestine rally, and was the victim of an anti-Semitic hate bias crime by one of the protesters in the rally. I'm not going to describe the person right now on here who said it, but he used some hate language aimed at the Jewish observers, yelling "Swastika, swastika," an anti-Semitic reference to German Nazis. He then used the speech threat, "You should be sent to the gas chambers," while literally looking me straight in the eye. To the other Jews that were behind me and around me in the crowd, reference to the murder of Jews at the gas chambers during the Holocaust. The hate speech threat was overheard by the protesters and by police officers that were standing there, which did not tell this person to stop. Then immediately after that, looked at us and said that we were the KKK and started calling for the Intifada. Sorry, my son is screaming in the background. I just wanted to share that happened. It was very scary. And I don't think, I heard the chief say earlier that you feel that the police department needs more training on anti-Semitism. That day on February 4th, there were 2 police officers. And I agree with you. I think you really do need more training, because I really believe that they had no idea what any of those things meant. So training on anti-Semitism to the whole department is crucial and important, so people are educated and know what they're hearing and what is being said and what is being shouted to us. Thank you.
If any other members of the public would like to speak in public comment, please raise your hand now. I'm moving over Joshua C., 2 panelists. Welcome, Joshua C. You can unmute yourself. You're now in public comment.
Good evening. Thank you for holding this meeting. It was actually very informative. As you said, my name is Joshua. My last name is Kamar. I'm not actually a resident of Maplewood, but my wife works in Maplewood. We live in Livingston. I feel a connection because she works there in Tier Town, obviously. I'm also concerned as a Jewish person and, father of kids. Thankfully, my wife works in a building that's been hardened and protects itself against possible bias attacks or any attacks of any kind. I'm sad that it's necessary in today's day and age. I'm concerned about the mindset that you guys seem to have. I may be wrong. I came on a little bit late to the meeting, but I did hear a lot. It seems like you guys, as the town government, are more interested in overall prevention of protest and, the protest about the Palestinians and whatnot. I'm concerned that approach will actually invite more nefarious modes of protest or actions. And I say that because that group is not shy about the types of language that they use. The language they use is condoning violence, both against Jews in Israel, obviously, in the Middle East, but also here in New Jersey. When they scream things like Intifada Revolution, and one that I think actually any American should be concerned about, which they used, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, Yemen, Yemen, make us proud. I'm sure we've all watched the news and we're all very well aware of what the Yemenite Houthis have been undertaking, shooting rockets and launching them directly at American resources, shipping, and even military installations. So this group is condoning that behavior and encouraging it. And that is what's creating the environment, making people like us feel very unsafe. And I'm not looking to blame the town. I'm not saying it's the town's fault, obviously, but I'm just very concerned that a lot of thinking has to be done, and I'm not sure it needs to be done in public space, but it really needs to be looked at internally, how you guys handle groups like that. Asking for 2-hour notice is all well and good, but if you're not prepared to be on site, deal with what's being said in the moment, and you're too scared or shying away because of First Amendment rights, I understand them, I respect them, I appreciate them. But at the same time, I think the powers that be need to really investigate and understand what these slogans really mean and do what's maximally allowed under the law to prevent it. And again, prevent more nefarious and dangerous actions from happening. Thank you very much for my time.
If any other members of the public would like to speak in public portion, please raise your hand now. I see no other hands, Ms. Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Weary. On behalf of this committee, I just want to thank all of the citizens, both those who live here in Maplewood or those who just enjoy being a part of this community, for coming out and sharing your concerns with us. We needed to hear it. We needed to see where things are falling short and where we can make things better, as much as we possibly can. We've got a task list together that was much bigger than I thought it would be at the end of this meeting. So that was definitely an education piece for me. And I appreciate the way that you continue to engage with the community of leadership here. We may not always 100% agree on things, but I am very conscious of the fact that our citizenry feels comfortable reaching out to us, and I hope that that never changes. So thank you for your time and for sharing your concerns with us, and we will do everything in our power that we can to try to make this situation less frightening, this time period less frightening for you as our residents. As a woman, as a mother, as a friend, I want you to know that we hear you and we respect you, and we want to make sure that you feel like Maplewood is a safe place for you to thrive and raise a family, and that never changes. So thank you for taking your time out again. I don't know if anyone else on the committee would like to say anything in regards to.
Mayor, you said it all. Thank you for that.
All right. So thank you very much for being present. We have our next meeting on March the 13th, 2024. So I would like to move that we move into executive session to discuss one item that we have on our agenda and then come back before we fully adjourn.
I'll second it.
Mr. Weary.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we'll go into executive session. I will now be removing the public participants in this meeting from the meeting. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you all.